Right, we're going to be working on Owl Moon. This is the 4th time we've read our story because we're becoming experts at it. Okay? So Mr. Doetch is going to have it up on the board so I can read it and you can see the pictures. And then I'm going to stop and ask you some questions again. It was late one winter night, long past my bedtime, when Pa and I went owling. There was no wind. The trees stood still as giant statues. I'm going to stop right there. What does the author mean when she writes, "The trees stood still as giant statues"? B partner, would you share with your A partner, please? And thank you, partner. Now, A partner, you're going to say, "I agree because," or "I disagree respectfully because." Go. Just keep sharing. And thank your partner. All right. Get one iPad.
You want me to forward for you?
Yes, please.
Okay, let's have Mr. Logan.
Mr. Logan, let me read you the question one more time. What does the author mean when she writes, "The trees stood as still as giant statues"?
Like they didn't leave it all with you.
How do you know that?
Because it said they would stay as statues, and statues don't move.
I agree. I respectfully disagree.
Jordan, do you agree or disagree with Mr.
I
Logan?
agree.
And why is
Because trees usually always are like statues. They don't live like statues.
The trees stood still as giant statues, and the moon was so bright, the sky seemed to shine. Somewhere behind us, a train whistle blew, long and low, like a sad, sad song. I could hear it through the woolen cap Pa had pulled down over my ears. A farm dog answered the train, and then a second dog joined in. They sang out, trains and dogs, for a real long time. And when their voices faded, it was as quiet as a dream. What does the author mean when she writes, "And when their voices faded away, it was as quiet as a dream"? A partner, can you share with B partners, please?
But dogs don't really loud. When there's no dogs talking, it's really, really quiet.
And thank you, partner. Okay. B partner. Will you tell your partner, "I agree," and why? Or "I respectfully disagree," and why?
Your name is Riley.
Okay, Riley, I'm gonna read you the question. What does the author mean when she writes, and when their voices faded away, it was as quiet as a dream?
That means she's trying to say it's very quiet.
How do you know that?
Because after the train and the dogs faded away, it was all quiet.
Riley, was there a dream in the story? Were they talking about a dream?
No,
So why'd she use the word dream?
because dreams are quiet.
And when their voices faded away, it was as quiet as a dream. We walked on toward the woods, Pa and I. Our feet crunched over the crisp snow, and little gray footprints followed us. Pa made a long shadow, but mine were short and round. I had to run after him every now and then to keep up, and my short, round shadow bumped after me. But I never called out. If you go owling, you have to be quiet. That's what Pa always says. I had been waiting to go owling with Pa for a long, long time. We reached the line of pine trees, black and pointy against the sky, and Pa held up his hand. I stopped right where I was and waited. He looked up as if searching the stars, as if reading a map up there. The moon made his face into a silver mask. Then he called. We do our great horned owl call. The sound of a great horned owl. One more time. Again he called out, and then again, after each call, he was silent. And for a moment, we both listened. But there was no answer. Pa shrugged, and I shrugged. I was not disappointed. My brothers all said, sometimes there's an owl, and sometimes there isn't. We walked on. I could feel the cold as if someone's icy hand was palmed down on my back, and my nose and the tops of my cheeks felt cold and hot at the same time. But I never said a word. If you go owling, you have to be quiet and make your own heat. We went into the shadows. The shadows were the blackest things I had ever seen. They stained the white snow. What does the author mean when she writes, the shadows were the blackest things I had ever seen. They stained the white snow. B partners, tell A partners.
Talon share. Talon, your stick was picked.
Talon. Let me read you the part again. What does the author mean when she writes, the shadows were the blackest things I had ever seen. They stained the white snow.
It means the moon was so bright, it made the snow really bright, and then the shadows were really dark.
Why did she use the word stained?
Because it was super black like a snake.
Okay. AJ, do you agree or disagree with Talon?
I agree because
Cal, will you share your answer one more time?
the moon was so bright, it made the snow really white, and then the shadows turned darker.
AJ?
I agree because
Okay, you got it for a minute? And come right back to you. We have another page, Doetch.
Niella.
Niella, do you agree or disagree with what Talon said?
I agree because the shadows look like a snake.
Can you say that real loud? Because we can't hear you over here, sweetheart.
AJ, do you agree or disagree?
Sometimes when it's snowy, like in the dark trees, when there's snow around, and then the dark trees, they make it like dark, so it's a stain.
The shadows were the blackest things I had ever seen. They stained the white snow. My mouth felt furry, for the scarf over it was wet and warm. I didn't ask what kinds of things hide behind black trees in the middle of the night. When you go owling, you have to be brave. Then we came to a clearing in the dark woods. The moon was high above us. It seemed to fit exactly over the center of the clearing, and the snow below it was whiter than milk in a cereal bowl. I sighed, and Pa held up his hand at the sound. I put my mittens over the scarf, over my mouth, and listened hard. Then Pa called. So I called. I listened and looked so hard my ears hurt and my eyes got cloudy with the cold. Pa raised his face to call out again, but before he could open his mouth, an echo came threading its way through the trees. Okay. What is an echo? Roxy. Here it is. Okay, Roxy, can you start one more time because the owl was hooting in our background? An echo?
An echo is like if you're like in a cave and you say something, it will bounce off like a wall or something, and it will echo.
Okay.
Can I have Austin revoice what she just said so we can all hear it? Austin, what did she just say? Roxy, will you say it one more time so we all can hear you?
An echo is like when you're in the cave, like if you say something, it will bounce off a wall and it will make like the same waves that you made.
Austin?
Echo is something that when you say something, it echoes and it bounces off something and comes straight back.
What analogy did our friend Roxy share with us? It's like being inside a what?
Okay.
Is that what she said, Roxy? Thank you.
That's the kind of echo that the author's writing about in this story. Let me read it again for you. Pa raised his face again to call out, but before he could open his mouth, an echo came threading its way through the trees.
Next friend. Bella.
Bella.
The owl answered after.
Okay, so tell me more about that.
It didn't bounce off something. The owl answered after.
So Pa made his sound,
And then the owl did.
so it wasn't Pa's voice bouncing back, it was a different kind of echo. All right, now listen to this part. What does the author mean by an echo came threading its way through the trees? Let me read that part again. Pa raised his face to call out again, but before he could open his mouth, an echo came threading its way through the trees. A partners, would you share with B partners? What does the writer mean?
So like, sits right. That means he sits in the middle.
B partners, would you share I agree because? I respectfully disagree because? And thank your partner. All right.
Ben.
Okay, Ben, what does the author mean when she writes? But before he could open his mouth, an echo came threading its way through the trees.
Cause like, when he said, when he went through, and before he could open his mouth, the owl said it, so he couldn't open his mouth before the owl did, cause the owl did it second, and like the owl, he said it, and after Pa, and then it went through the trees, like between them, when they have those like spaces between them, and then they heard it by threading through the trees.
And let's have Ella.
Ella, do you agree with Ben or do you respectfully disagree with Ben?
If the owl thought it was another owl, he wouldn't come into the owl.
Tell me more about that.
But it wasn't really a person, so he didn't come.
Okay.
He just thought it was.
So we heard the sound. Did we see the owl?
No.
Not yet. Okay. Ben, would you say your part about threading through the trees one more time about the echo?
So like, when Pa said it, before he could make another sound, an owl said it, and then it went between the trees that are like on the picture, on the board, that is together, and then there's a little space, and then it went
Ben,
through.
what came between the trees? What threaded through the trees?
A voice from the owl.
Okay. So Ella, what does it mean when the echo came threading through the trees?
That means that the owl was coming through the trees.
Then what came through the trees?
A sound from the owl.
So it wasn't the owl, it was a sound from the owl. Okay, do you agree with Ben or do you respectfully disagree? Okay. Right. Pa raised his face to call it again, but before he could open his mouth, an echo came threading its way through the trees.
Good.
Pa almost smiled. Then he called back. Make our sound. Just as if he and the owl were talking about supper, or about the woods, or the moon, or the cold. I took my mitten off the scarf, off my mouth, and I almost smiled too. The owl's call came closer from high up in the trees on the edge of the meadow. Nothing in the meadow moved. All of a sudden, an owl shadow, part of the big tree shadow, lifted off and flew right over us. We watched silently, with heat in our mouths, the heat of all those words we had not spoken. The shadow hooted again. Pa turned on his big flashlight and caught the owl just as it was landing on a branch. For 1 minute, 3 minutes, maybe even 100 minutes, we stared at one another. Then the owl pumped its great wings and lifted off the branch like a shadow without a sound. It flew back into the forest. "Time to go home," Pa said to me. I knew then I could talk. I could even laugh out loud. But I was a shadow as we walked home. When you go owling, you don't need words or warn or anything but hope. That's what Pa says. The kind of hope that flies on silent wings under a shining owl moon. As we've read our stories several times, we've been talking about the different words the writer uses. We're going to be talking in our groups today about what lessons the little girl learned when she went owling with Pa. Should be thinking about that. What lessons did the little girl learn as she went owling with Pa? What is the author trying to tell us about those lessons?
So B partner, would you revoice the question back to your A partner, what we're thinking about?
Mason, who's your partner? And thank your partner.
Thank you, Laura. Okay, we're going to face the board now. So we're going to transition into our daily 5. So we need to be thinking for just a minute. What's on the board? Nathan, would you go point for us, please? Would you read our question to us? So I'll read it with Nathan, please. Ready? Why do we want to become better readers? Okay, so Nathan, will you point to him? We're going to read to him. To be smarter, to learn new words, to read fast, to get a job, to go to college, to teach others, to do writing, to read different books, to read college books, to learn about places around the world, to help grow up, to go to second grade, to practice strategies, to learn to do new things, to read better, to read chapter books, to read with others, to go to imaginary places, to get new books, because I like it. It is fun! Where did these all come from, friends? Okay, so we're going to think of reasons to become better readers today. We have lots of reasons. So I want you to think for just a moment, what are 2 things I'm going to do really well during this rotation?
Okay, all right, we're going to have a smooth transition. Quickly.
Quietly, courteously.
Okay, all right. Rouge group, pop up. You are rude to self